So this morning, we continue our series on developing an understanding and cultivating a deep relationship with our inner intuition, an aspect of the divine feminine. We've explored the many pathways. There is only one intuition, but it expresses and gets our attention through many different pathways. So last week we took a deeper dive into the meaning, having a greater understanding what the pathway of creative intuition is all about. So I'm just going to briefly say that for anybody who wasn't with us, and also know that there are archives of the service on our website at unitybytheshore.org. And then after that, what we're going to move into this morning is briefly identify what are the signs and symptoms of creative intuition deficiency, and then look at ways that we can awaken and empower our pathway of creative intuition. Some of these you may be familiar with, and some you may not. What I ask of you is, if you've been somebody who is interested in spiritual growth and empowerment, and you've been on the path for a while, it seems like, sometimes there's not something new. It may be something that is repeated. And what I know for myself, that I call myself into being a spiritual participant. One of the things about Unity's teachings is that they call us to be spiritually active in bringing spirituality into expression rather than just studying dogma and being a follower of it. So it calls us to be, instead of spiritual spectators, it calls us to spiritually practice. So like I've given the example a couple of weeks ago about the mandalas. And so, many of you may have them, but my question is, when's the last time you've practiced them for a while? It's really about the call to embodying these things. And yes, we may have done something in the past, but the call is, how may I bring more into this practice to maybe master it at a deeper level? So with that said, creative intuition, a review. It is the pathway of our spiritual wise heart. It is the pathway of emoting from our feeling nature, but it is the wisdom, not just reacting from our feelings, blindly following our feelings, but it is when we are centered rather in personality or our reactive hearts, but it is our wise heart. So as these passions and we emote, there is wisdom that is contained within it. And so we go within to glean its meaning. And creative intuition through the pathway of our wise, intuitive hearts gives us that nudge to spiritually grow and evolve, not just study, but to bring it into expression in our own lives. It also is the voice within that reveals to us divine ideas, the desires of our heart, and what we are being called to bring forth into this world at this time in our lives. And through our life cycle, that may change. And it is not just getting the divine idea that comes up and the desires that arise within us, but it is also now, how do I bring forth, how do I create, how do I engage the creative process to bring this divine idea that is alive within me into the manifest form or into the actual physical experience of my life. And we talked about last week the creative process being mind, idea, expression. And so that is how we cultivate our imagination, because sometimes that divine idea arises and then we, instead of using the inner intuition throughout the whole process and bring it into the birth process, we then go back and default into the intellect, and that will become more clear as we move along this morning. So let's take a quick glimpse at signs of how creative deficiency might not be flowing freely for you at this point, a deficiency or a block, and it may show up with that experience of feeling like you are stuck in a rut, like you just have that sense of stagnation in your life. Or perhaps it is the experience where you're living a life that doesn't seem to be in alignment with your authentic self. Perhaps you're following along in the family's business, but it's not really something that excites you, or you feel that you might have a gift in. Or perhaps you're, don't want to speak out, and so you're in a situation for security reasons. You kind of prostitute yourself in order to get by, where you prostitute meaning that you forfeit your values, your spiritual beliefs in order for security. It's the experience where you have that creator's block, writer's block, so on and so on. Or you may just have this general malaise of feeling like you're just lost, you're drifting along, lacking some kind of meaning and purpose, or we're uninspired. Now, I also want to make sure you make the distinction here, because when you lose someone in your life who's been near and dear to you, or lost something significant in your life, the grieving process can show up of feeling uninspired or being in a rut. So I'm making a clear distinction here that it's not attached to the grieving process. And also a creative deficiency or block can show up as playing it safe. Playing it safe. So we're going to get into that in a moment, a little deeper. So as you hear or look at all of these examples of blocks to creativity, are you experiencing any of them now, or have you experienced any of them in your life? And if you have, I invite you to maybe put it in the chat box. Just know my chat box is on the screen right now, so you're going to see a little black box just so that I can read them. Anybody ever experience any of these creative intuition blocks or deficiencies now or in the past? So I get a yes. Is Gail the only one? Or you're just not wanting to share? That's okay too. Oh, yes, indeed. Okay. All right. So perhaps later, if you want to share more about it, there's no, need to share specifically at this time. So I want to look at playing it safe. So what do you think might be the root cause or the underlying reason why people play it safe or don't venture out of their comfort zone? What do you think might be behind that? Fear, Keith. And let's take a look at that fear. Fear. And there could be others too. Let's see what's here. Fear of failure, success, change, fear of loss. Yes, 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 and yes. So fear that we may lose something by making a change. Perhaps it's the security we know, the life that we know. And so fear in being stuck and not playing it safe can show up as procrastination, lethargy, conformity, escapism. And these are also can be from, in other areas of our life. So procrastination, perhaps we got like this divine idea, but we haven't it seems, like I say, I always say that 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, we're so excited about it. And then the next day we're, kind of like, oh, how are we going to make that happen kind of deal. So, and instead of staying with, okay, let me just go within and look at this fear, be with this fear, embrace this fear. And then when I'm ready to break it down into a small step, it can show up like procrastination. I'll look at that tomorrow. I don't know if I really can do that, and so we put it off and we do other things. Lethargy, how many of us may use, well, I really can't get to that now because I'm just tired. I'm tired all the time. I work a lot. And all that may be true, but I would say for my own experience, the biggest drain on my energy is when I am in fear, not the actual physical acts. Now, that can be challenging and taxing. I'm not discounting that. But what's more draining to us is when we are in the lower vibrational energies, not that we're not supposed to be with them, but when we don't embrace them and look them and go deeper, then they kind of have this like energy drain on us. And that conformity that I spoke of before, where we decide that, that we are going to do the business like our parents did the business, and so on and so on. And then escapism. Hey, we worked so hard, I should be able to watch Netflix for 5 hours when I get home, or 2 hours when I get home. Or, hey, I'm just gonna, hang out on social media because that's my way. After all, I work hard, I just deserve a break. And so, yes, we all deserve or should participate. Well, let me take the word should out. I don't like that word. We're all invited in a healthy spiritual practice to embrace time to be still, to nurture ourselves. But at what point does it gets in the way for us from taking authentic action in our lives? And so let us take a look here. I just want to, before we go on, and how we can empower it. Might get criticized, judged, disappointed, keep repeating safe behaviors. So you guys are all in the human journey with me. So I feel like I have company. So now we're going to look at ways that we can awaken and empower our creative intuition. I go to some of the ideas in Kim Chesney's book, Radical Intuition. And for each pathway, she breaks it down. How we can empower and awaken is through attunement, where we light the fire, so to speak, where we can tune into it itself. She always gives some form of a different kind of meditation. When we did the intellectual form of meditation, empower intellectual or mindful intuition, we looked at the mandala and mantras and affirmations. So this is going to be more about visualization meditations. And then there's the creative practices where we get ourselves involved in an activity. So let us begin with attunement. So there are 3 ways that we can light our fire. We can attune into our creative intuition. And these 3 are to seek ideas and answers from within rather than going to the outside world. And that spiritual lesson repeats in pretty much anything that we cover. And to engage in insight journaling and to venture out our comfort zone. So, and Yoda, deep within the answer lies. There you must search first. So let's say a divine idea arises, right? You have this great idea. And like I said earlier, and so how do we carry it through with the intuitive process? Because sometimes we get the intuitive idea and then we go back to personality, where we look to the outside world to see how we can get it off the ground and into expression, rather than going within using the creative process of mind, idea, expression. So rather than looking to something similar, people who do something similar, or to your friends, go within and ask yourself, how may I use my gifts in a unique and creative way? Because I may be called to express it differently. That makes me come alive. And so I'm going to use the example of photographer. And Matt and I have had lovely discussions about this. So if it seems like it might be close to home, I have Matt's permission, because we all know what a fabulous photographer. And this is not just geared towards Matt, but it has been a fruitful conversation between us, and one that I cherish. So let's say you're a photographer, and instead of maybe going to all the gurus and the trainings of photography, not that you ditch them altogether, but it becomes where that's what we're doing, right? Or the people will say, you have to make so many posts on Facebook, so many posts on Instagram, or this is how you should have your website. Well, maybe you get the divine idea that you should have a website, but how do you want it to be laid out, and not leaving it to the person to create their vision of what it should be for you, but that you actually go within yourself to lead the way. You have these people who are supportive on your path, but you are allowing your intuition and your unique expression of who you are to guide your way. And this goes into anything that we're going to express, whether you have a healing practice like Paula's here, Willow practice. She went within and sought, how could she be a unique expression? What does the world need now? And that's the question she asked herself. And lo and behold, the universe responded. So this is for people doing all things. So going back to the photographer example, asking the question, and I left it blank because you could take photographer out and put anybody in. How may I use my unique gifts and creativity in order for my images, fill in the blank, to inspire and uplift others? How may I do it? How am I being uniquely called? How do I bring it forth in a way that I seem to be and have a natural gift and affinity for? And then we move into insight journaling. Some of you love journaling, some of you not so much. And this is a particular kind of journaling. This is like to spark that fire of creativity. So here are some ideas that you can choose to journal on to allow yourself to ignite the fire of your creativity every day. Write about what moves you. Perhaps you are a fan of This Is Us, the series that's coming to a close. And there's pretty much not an episode that I don't watch that brings me to tears. So perhaps I could journal about, like, what's moving me? Did this episode speak to my soul? But perhaps you're out in a field of tulips and may have had the experience, like someone in our community, going to Holland and walking and biking through the tulips, right? Maybe journal about that experience, or listen to a song that moves you and then journal about what's most alive in your heart and in your body. You could journal about the different relationships, desires, your dreams, your disappointment, poetry, about your spiritual growth path. It goes on and on. And even just set a timer, even if it's for 5 minutes, or select how many times, a week that you will do it. And now we move into that comfort zone, stepping out of our comfort zone in order to open up our creative blocks. And I'm going to share this video with you.
A few years ago, I felt like I was stuck in a rut. So I decided to follow in the footsteps of the great American philosopher, Morgan Spurlock, and try something new for 30 days. The idea is actually pretty simple. Think about something you've always wanted to add to your life and try it for the next 30 days. It turns out 30 days is just about the right amount of time to add a new habit or subtract a habit, like watching the news, from your life. There's a few things that I learned while doing these 30-day challenges. The first was, instead of the months flying by forgotten, the time was much more memorable. This was part of a challenge I did to take a picture every day for a month, and I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing that day. I also noticed that as I started to do more and harder 30-day challenges, my self-confidence grew. I went from desk-dwelling computer nerd to the kind of guy who bikes to work for fun. Even last year, I ended up hiking up Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest mountain in Africa. I would never have been that adventurous before I started my 30-day challenges. I also figured out that if you really want something badly enough, you can do anything for 30 days. Have you ever wanted to write a novel? Every November, tens of thousands of people try to write their own 50,000-word novel from scratch in 30 days. It turns out, all you have to do is write 1,667 words a day for a month. So I did. By the way, the secret is not to go to sleep until you've written your words for the day. You might be sleep deprived, but you'll finish your novel. Now, is my book the next great American novel? No, I wrote it in a month. It's awful. But for the rest of my life, if I meet John Hodgman at a TED party, I don't have to say, I'm a computer scientist. No, if I want to, I can say, I'm a novelist. So here's one last thing I'd like to mention. I learned that when I made small, sustainable changes, things I could keep doing, they were more likely to stick. There's nothing wrong with big, crazy challenges. In fact, they're a ton of fun, but they're less likely to stick. When I gave up sugar for 30 days, day 31 looked like this. So here's my question to you. What are you waiting for? I guarantee you the next 30 days are going to pass whether you like it or not. So why not think about something you have always wanted to try and give it a shot for the next 30 days? Thanks.
So I am inviting you to venture out your comfort zone, something that truly makes you uncomfortable. Now, I'm talking about keeping it simple, although you can get into this as much as you want, like climbing, Mount Everest or sky jumping. I'm talking about simple little things to do something different, to stir things up. Whether it's biking to work or taking a different path, maybe taking the scenic route rather than the quickest route there, wearing clothing or colors that you wouldn't have before, so on and so on. So I'm inviting people, we'll talk about it at the end, and I'm going to send an email out for this community, each individual, as many as you want, to pick 10, 20, 30, 40-day practice. You can do 3 if you want, but I'm going to ask Matt to place in the chat box 50 ideas that could be possibilities for you. Again, ask you, is this something that is out of my comfort zone? So like perhaps for Matt, it's not uncomfortable for him to take an image every day, but maybe looking at different ways he shares them might be taking him out of his comfort zone, and so on and so on. So, let me just see, I think Matt put it in the chat box. You can click on it and then you'll have your copy. All right, so now we move into meditation. Meditation is something that is used to empower all pathways of intuition. But the creative visualization type of meditation is one that sparks our creative intuition, where we engage our power of imagination, where we engage our 5 senses to do that. And for time, obviously, I'm not going to do one here. I'm going to try to include that next week, but you can go to Insight Timer, you can Google, you can go to Gaia TV, and there's tons of them. Or you could just, again, take your divine desire and use all your power of imagination in meditation to sense it coming into expression. So now we move into the creative, the action part of it, right? More of getting our hands in it. How can we flex our creative intuition muscles, each and every day, trying a new recipe? Perhaps you're going to cook without a recipe. I have been raised to cook without recipes, and that's familiar. And I have all these cookbooks, and I always find myself to just doing my own thing. So perhaps for me, it would be to go get some recipes and try them. Sand art, building something, scrapbook, drawing, coloring. Now here the distinction is this doesn't have to bring you out of your comfort zone, which is a different practice, right? But it can be one and the same. And so Kim Chesney shares two creative practices, and that is mandala, and she talks about creative vision, intuition vision board. So we're going to look at just a simple explanation of mandala, and I'll see you on the other side of this.
Hello and welcome. This video is to introduce you to mandala pictures. I'll explain a little bit about their history and significance and how they can be put to use. If you'd like to learn about making them, you should check out my other videos and head over to inspiredfornature.co.uk, as I'm putting together some online and in-person classes on mandalas and other nature-themed creative projects. So what is a mandala? The word mandala is from the Indian Sanskrit language meaning circle. Eastern mandala art can be traced back to around the 4th century, but arguably the art form dates back as far as civilization itself, as circular art is found on cave walls and etched into ancient stone. Technically, a mandala can be made from any shape, but the circle is most common, and perhaps the reason is that it's the most natural shape found in this universe. The circle is complete. Like the cycles of nature, it's something that's both begun and finished at the same time. In Tibet, creating and concentrating on mandalas is considered a form of mind maintenance, the designs being symbolic of the universe itself. Buddhist monks sit for hours or days arranging the most intricate patterns using coloured sand, which is even more amazing to me since after all that effort, the art is simply swept away. Psychiatrist Carl Jung is quoted saying, "A mandala is the psychological expression of the totality of the self," and regularly used mandalas with his patients as he discovered that sometimes creative therapy worked better than purely talking. That's what I like about mandalas. Drawing a mandala is a form of meditation in itself. Anything that involves light concentration and repetitive motions is a great way to quiet your mind. After the design is complete, they can continue to make excellent meditation tools, especially for those who have trouble visualizing or sitting still without something to do. So there we are. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this interesting, and perhaps you'd now like to go and make some of your own. They're really addictive and the perfect project for creativity building. If you'd like to learn about making them, you should check out my other videos and head over to inspiredfornature.co.uk, as I'm putting together some online and in-person classes on mandalas and other nature-themed creative projects.
So before we move to this, as we come to a close, you can get coloring books of mandalas online. You can get how-to videos on YouTube. There are classes, so on and so on. So you can pursue that on your own and see if it inspires you to bring some more creativity into your life. The last thing that I'm going to try to move through, because I know it's Mother's Day, many of you might be aware of vision boards, and I want to read the quote on the left. Vision boards are not intuitive unto themselves. So the type of vision board I'm speaking to you about is one that is created from what you want to experience rather than a vision that is based on a goal, where lots of times our intellect takes over. The objective of an intuitive vision board is not to manifest what your intellectual or your personality wants, but rather to manifest the experiences and the desires of your spiritual heart. So how may that show up differently? So let's say you were in meditation, or just, you're sitting there, and on numerous occasions, you've gotten the intuitive nudge, it's time for you to move, right? And so rather than staying with that process throughout it all, the intellect comes online. And again, there's nothing wrong with the intellect, but again, what leads the heart is the way is our intuition. So if we just solely let the intellect come in the rational mind, we may move into an experience like this. So all right, well, maybe I'm going to move to Florida. And that's what comes up. And it's because, hey, all my friends have moved there. It's warm year round. There's no state income tax or very little tax. The homes are cheaper. They have great beaches and many things to do, or tourist attractions, or maybe my family is there. And I'm not saying that there's not times where you sacrifice, but so I want to show you how the distinction would be and how you would create a vision board that is based on experience that you want to engage in. So here a vision board may be, different pictures of Florida, no taxes, friends that live there, so on and so on. And again, this is not right or wrong. There are different styles and you get to pick which one you're going to choose to do. So instead, as you go into your intuitive wise heart and create an intuitive vision board, what you do is first go into prayer and meditation. Maybe you go into intuitive journaling after that. Is what kind of experience do I want to experience in the space or the place that I inhabit it? Notice the difference of the words. I want to experience beauty and happiness, freedom, both financial freedom and the freedom to express myself for who I am. Acceptance. I want to live in a space that opens up and there's lots of opportunity for connection and relationships and perhaps some romance, where there is the support of the experience of my overall health and wholeness and spiritual growth. And so then you are led to create around this, and then you open yourself up to see, is it Florida where all these things could be into this experience? Maybe you'll have cheaper taxes and stuff like that, but maybe you're being called somewhere else to bring forth relationships and connections in new ways, or to enliven you in new ways. So we allow our intuition to take the lead. So what you do is you go into that meditation, you get the divine idea to open up a business, use your photography, but what will I want to experience while I am doing this divine idea? And then you call up those experience words like I just showed. You look for images, they could be online, you can draw them, you could cut them out, words that you are drawn to, there's resonance. And then you assemble it either online, on a board, you paint it, and then you put it in a place where you display it and you can see it. And you don't want it to be, and it's something that you will revisit over and over and change, because then it just becomes background for us. So I know I did that real quick. I think a lot of you are aware of it. I just don't know if some of you are doing it goal-oriented versus intuitive, because it is a different way of doing it. And so we come to a close. And so I ask of you, what will you do to awaken and empower your creative intuition? Will you do something to take that coming out of your comfort zone challenge? Will you do insight journaling? Will you participate in mandala drawings, or create an intuitive vision board, create a visualization? It is endless. And whatever ideas that come up from your divine intuition as ways that you can empower and express your own creative intuition in this world. I wish you a very blessed week. Namaste.
Thank you, Angela. A lot to think about. So thank you very much. Our affirmative prayer: by following the call of my intuition, I witness my passion becoming my purpose, powerfully expressing in my life. Beautiful. At this time, our guardian angel will stop recording our service.